from time to time, making these videos, if I've seen something that I feel strongly about, I will review it, be it a movie, or a book, or a piece of theatre. And this month is Shit Theatre, and that's the name of the company, so I do apologise for sensitive people. And I went to see their show Dollywood about 2 weeks ago. This is a follow-up to a show that they'd done a show before called Letters to Windsor House, which is about the housing crisis and about, you know, people struggling on the housing crisis and all that sort of thing. It was a very coherent and very show with a good narrative. Unfortunately, Dollywood fell some way short of their last production. The themes of Dollywood, just to kind of fill people in, it's about Dolly Parton and their love for Dolly Parton. They love Dolly Parton, and that's great, you know. These two people have a passion for this lady and her music, and I find that admirable. And then there's some themes about Dolly the sheep as well, which are in there, and also Grimace stuff, which is about what happens to your body when you die. So they've kind of got all these elements. yeah, they've got all these elements that they have, but they can't quite tie it together properly. They can't quite. The narrative is there. They have the Dolly Parton bits. I think are the best bits, because you know they go off to Dollywood in America, Florida or somewhere, and they have a journey which shows them going there, and that's a good segment. That was probably, if I had to pick all the segments out, that's probably my favourite segment. Unfortunately, it falls short on the other segments. And the narrative isn't there. You know, you have bits about Dolly the sheep, which was all very interesting, and about clones and all that sort of thing, and that's quite interesting. But it doesn't really it doesn't go anywhere. Doesn't seem like there's a kind of point. It's just kind of two people rambling a bit, and that's sort of, you know, you need, I think, when you have theatre, you need a tight narrative, and you need everything to be tight and everything to kind of have a point. Another bit which I think came out of their visit to Dollywood, which was about dead bodies and what happens to your body when you die. I'm quite interested in that, but I wasn't. It made me kind of feel a bit uncomfortable. I mean, yes, it happens, and I know there's a process, but I felt they should have really just stuck to the Dollywood stuff. But there was another couple of stories about how they'd fallen out and how they came back together to make this show. And I would have loved to have seen them making a show about how their love of Dolly Parton brought them back together again. But that would have been a far better show than the one I watched. I was really disappointed, because I got very excited to see this, because I'd seen Letters to Windsor House, and I thought it was superb, and I thought it was a wonderful, wonderful kind of piece about housing crisis and things like that. But this was just, it just fell way short. I know they're brilliant, but in this piece they weren't great, and unfortunately they did a couple of unnecessary things in it. And one of the things was they got their dress out for reasons that I didn't know, and it wasn't just me who didn't know either. The other people in the audience, but I went to a theatre club afterwards, and we sat around, and we didn't even A, really kind of know what it was about while the themes were there, and B, you know, we weren't sure when they had got their dress out. We were all puzzled about this. It didn't seem to, narratively, within the narrative of the play, it didn't seem to have a kind of point to it. And I'm not talking prosthetics or any kind of fake boobs or anything like that. They're actual boobs, and I found that quite disturbing, and it was unnecessary. I do have to say they are excellent singers. They're excellent performers. They've been performing together for years. So on that side, they were spot on with all the singing and all the stuff about Dolly. But overall, it was a huge disappointment to see a theatre group, I know are brilliant, having seen their last show, just not at all step up to their A game. It just seemed like they'd rushed it a bit. You know, they'd done their last show a year ago, and this was a year. I think maybe if they'd taken more time to develop it, and more time in the studio to kind of think about it and play about with it in rehearsal, it could have been something excellent. I'm really hoping that they come back and they do another play, and they can dispel my doubts, but I really hate to have this for me to see them for the last time, because it wasn't anything up to their usual standards, and I'm really disappointed about that.